Good evening and welcome to Other Voices, brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. I'm your host, Paul George. On this month's edition of Other Voices, we're going to take a look at the concept of corporations being people and money being the same thing as free speech. You've probably heard about this, the immense power the corporations wield in our politics, lobbying on Washington, donating to campaigns, and money as speech, wealthy people financing super PACs and that sort of thing. It has totally corrupted our democracy. Tonight, this month, we're going to talk to a couple of people that are trying to do something about it in a decidedly democratic method. Let me introduce to you two activists with an organization called Build Democracy, End Corporate Rule. The far end of the table is Jerry Hunt, and sitting right next to me is Eitan Fenson. Gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for being here on Other Voices.
Thanks for having us.
So what you're doing to be democratic about this and try to address all these issues, which we will get into a little bit more, but you are trying to put a ballot initiative, an initiative on the ballot, Santa Clara County, for the November 2014 election called Build Democracy, End Corporate Rule. And this is a project of Santa Clara County Move to Amend, and we'll talk about Move to Amend, but let's get right into the initiative. What is this initiative, Build Democracy, End Corporate Rule? And well, let's start there, and then we'll find out why it needs to be on our ballot and why we should be voting for it, and working for it, and that sort of thing.
At Santa Clara County Move to Amend, we are embarked on a long-term effort to amend the Constitution to prevent the Supreme Court from vetoing the will of the people. In pursuit of that goal, one of the things we've been focusing on is giving the people an avenue, an outlet to express their opinion. And that's what this is about. That's what the Build Democracy, End Corporate Rule initiative is about. It's the name of the political action committee that we formed that is managing this process.
A little ironic that you have to form your own political action
committee.
Believe
me, almost all of this is quite ironic in that we have to raise money to do this. So in a way, I've been saying it's almost perverse. We're asking people to contribute so that the money that they contribute will be less influential. Anyhow, the ballot initiative that we call Build Democracy, End Corporate Rule, the purpose for it is to allow the people of Santa Clara County to express their solidarity with us and their opinion that the Constitution should be amended, as I say, to prevent the court from making the decisions that it's had, such as with Citizens United, affirming that corporations are people and that spending money on campaigns and lobbying is equivalent to free speech. In addition to that, the initiative as well calls for the creation of a Democracy Day. And there have been some questions about why does the initiative also call for a Democracy Day. The reason for that is that the California Constitution requires any ballot initiative that is put on the ballot by citizen signatures, that initiative must either create law or amend the California Constitution. That applies not only to statewide ballot initiatives, but to any county or jurisdiction that does not have an explicit exemption from that. Santa Clara County does not have an exemption in its charter, so it is governed by the same rule that the California State Constitution. So what that means is that our initiative, in addition to giving citizens the opportunity to express their opinion, must create a law. And the law that we have decided to create is the directive to the county supervisors to host a Democracy Day annually at which this issue is discussed, the issue of corporate personhood and money and speech. So that's, in a nutshell, what the initiative is about.
So basically, Jerry, the initiative, when people read it, will say you're voting to endorse the idea of a 28th Amendment. Is that mentioned in the initiative?
It is mentioned in the initiative, yes.
Okay.
We specifically say that we will ask people to endorse that human rights are greater than corporate rights.
Right.
And that money is not the equivalent of free speech.
And then there's this Democracy Day that will become a national
Correct.
holiday or
Not
something.
national.
No, it's a county law. It's a county
This is a
holiday.
county law.
Okay.
It's in the county code, or will
Okay.
be.
Will we at least get the day off?
I wouldn't count on it.
So you've obviously had to go through a lot of hoops just to learn about how to build an initiative. Tell us about the process of getting involved in this. I mean, I think a lot of people have, look at their ballots every election. They see a whole long list of initiatives, wonder what most of them are about. And I wonder how many wonder what went into getting it on there. So just as an organizing thing, what's it taken to do this?
Well, several decades ago, Hiram Johnson created the initiative process in California. And so California has had the initiative process for some 70, 80 years. And I've been studying some of the initiative process, and there was a book written by the Democratic Party in San Francisco that talks about initiatives and how to put an initiative together. There's also the Secretary of State's website, which has all the details as to how you set the timing up. So in order to get the approval of the initiative, you have to have it approved at least 180 days before the next election. So
approved by whom?
There's another.
It's got to be approved by the because we're using a county initiative. The County Board of Supervisors have to approve, and the council have to approve that we've qualified the initiative for the election.
There are really two ways to qualify an initiative for the ballot. One is to go directly to the Board of Supervisors and say, hey guys, we have this initiative we'd like to put on the ballot. Do you agree with us? If you do, we'd like you to sponsor it. That's often the way it's done, lobbying the supervisors themselves. It is generally it's a more inexpensive way to do it. And it's also a way that people well-connected to the supervisors, where the supervisors see something in it for them to put it on the ballot. We have chosen the other way. The other way is a grassroots way, and it's called a citizens initiative, where there is a minimum number of signatures that one must gather in a petition that we deliver to the registrar of voters in the county, saying, hey, we have enough signatures of registered voters in Santa Clara County that would like to see this initiative put on the ballot. That has an advantage in the sense that if, in fact, we do collect enough signatures, then pretty much the supervisors are obligated to put it on the ballot and without changing the wording. Whereas if we were to go to the supervisors and ask them, hey guys, we have this initiative, we'd like you to put it on the ballot, they have the freedom to reword it to their liking. So we chose the Citizens Initiative for a couple of reasons, one of which is to be in concert with the principles of the National Move to Amend movement, which is very much a grassroots movement. We have on the order of several 100,000 people who've signed in support of the movement. And the principle of the people deciding is an important one, which is why we've chosen the more difficult, more expensive process of collecting signatures to put the measure on the ballot. The number of signatures that we need is 10% of the total vote within the county for governor in the previous gubernatorial election. So in 2010, when Jerry Brown was elected, approximately 500,000 votes were cast in Santa Clara County, which means we have to collect 50,000 real valid signatures.
Of registered voters.
Registered voters in Santa Clara County.
I want to just back up and clarify something. If I started to say if, let me say when you get your 50,000 signatures, and then you take them to the board, and the board still has final say whether this goes on the ballot or not?
No. If we will qualify if they certify that we have 51,000, like 916, I don't know the exact number. If we have the required signatures, then it goes on the ballot. We have to go through the process of delivering the signatures to the registrar of voters.
Yeah.
There's 5 or 6 administrative steps in the process,
Right.
but in general, the supervisors approve once we get the number of signatures required, yes.
Yeah. So this is, I can see this, what you say, that this is the grassroots method of doing it, and it's also the very, very difficult way of doing it. I mean, getting 50,000 signatures on anything is really tough. Having circulated petitions for a long time, I know what that takes.
It's more really very important that we do more public education, because, you know, by getting this petition on the ballot, how many people know what we're really talking about in terms of corporate personhood and equivalence of free speech.
Right.
So what we need to be doing is talking to the people so that they understand what these issues are about, and so that they're much more attuned to voting for it rather than just voting against it because they don't know what it's about.
Right. So are you finding that as you're out petitioning, that you're able to engage people in conversations and help explain
Very much so, yes.
The issue?
Yes.
This is not kind of a bumper sticker issue. You know, it doesn't get explained as somebody's walking by on their way out of the grocery store. So,
to Jerry's point, this is a national phenomenon, and it's not limited to blue Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
It's across the board, across the country. So, for example, the state of Montana had a ballot initiative on its ballot in 2012. And its initiative, which was an advisory measure, it did not create law, it just expressed the opinions of the voters of the state of Montana, which is a very red state, I think we all know. That initiative said explicitly, do you support the Move to Amend amendment, the one that we have crafted, or Move to Amend is crafted, affirming that corporations don't have the rights of people and that money isn't speech. That initiative passed in the state of Montana 75% to 25%.
wow.
So it supports what Jerry says, and that is that there's real sense among the population that this is a problem and needs to be fixed. So we find that as well. The challenge, of course, is to sort through the noise. There's a lot of noise out there, and getting people to pay attention is a challenge.
Yeah. The Montana initiative, as I recall, there had been some kind of change. Montana had very strong regulations against corporations getting involved.
Not regulations, the Constitution.
Constitution. And remind me what happened on that.
The Montana Constitution basically stipulated that corporations did not have the right to contribute to campaigns. And the Supreme Court Citizens United ruling trumped it. And there was a suit brought, and in fact, the Supreme Court invalidated that portion of the Montana Constitution.
Wow. No wonder they were up in arms.
That was a year after the Citizens United decision, right?
Yeah. So yet another effect of Citizens United that
Right.
probably people outside of Montana aren't well aware of.
That's correct.
Are there any other like local initiatives or statewide initiatives in the same process that you're doing, or are you kind of a Move to Amend experiment nationally here in Santa Clara County?
No, we are not a Move to Amend experiment. One way to look at it is we are Move to Amend leaders, but that's in another capacity. There are other counties that either are doing or have done what we're doing. Mendocino County actually passed a citizens initiative, what, 2 years ago?
Yes.
The Santa Cruz County and Sonoma County are doing the same thing we're doing. One thing that as we contemplate that, we realize that they have it a lot easier than we do. To collect 50,000 signatures is a lot easier than collecting 5,000 signatures. Santa Clara County being a lot bigger.
Yeah, yeah, you probably have the biggest hill to climb.
Yes, we do.
So do you think the street level engagement on people is what you would hope for at this point?
That's a loaded question.
And probably not easy to answer, really.
Well, actually, it's too easy to answer. It is not what we had hoped for, in the sense that, unfortunately, with the current political climate, with some interesting races, particularly in Santa Clara County, I don't know how many people know that there's a very interesting mayoralty race in San Jose, and there's a lot of focus on that, a lot of attention to it, which distracts from what we're doing, among other things. There are a lot of things in the air that really make it more difficult to catch people's attention. And from what I understand in my colleagues raising money in other progressive causes, it's more difficult this year than it has been in the past. And so it's been more difficult for us to really get the kind of traction that we're looking for. With that said, when we do speak to people, there really is, as I said earlier, there's a lot of enthusiasm for it. So we're dealing with a problem, I think, across the country, which is just a lot of noise in the media, a lot of consternation and anxiety about many different things, and getting people to focus on what we believe is the most important issue, at least as far as social policy is concerned, is a challenge.
Yeah. Your local chapter of Move to Amend, the Santa Clara County chapter, has been active since 2011, is it, that you got started? Yes. Do you have a way of discerning whether more people are getting the issue, are familiar with the issue? Here we are 3 years down the road, not only through your actions, but other groups' actions. Where do we stand on this conversation in this country?
Well, I would have to confess that in some respects, some of the activists have lost patience with the slow movement and have kind of fallen by the wayside. So we're struggling to re-energize the people in the county to really understand that it's a long-term process, and it takes, you have to understand and be patient about how you move forward and get people moving with you.
Especially when your ultimate goal is amending the Constitution. Correct. This is not an easy process.
Right.
I mean, I had folks on this program from Santa Clara County Move to Amend a couple of years ago when you're still getting geared up. I think you had 1 or 2 successful actions at that point. And that's what we were talking about, is that amending the Constitution is not easy. It takes a lot of votes from individuals and from Congress.
Right.
Why don't you just lay out what that takes?
I'd like to refer to a segment in the video that we have on our crowdfunding page, the Indiegogo crowdfunding page, which I'll do a little pitch for that. If you go to our website, bdecker.org, bdecr.org, there's a link that allows you to go to the site. There's a video on there that is a compilation from a video that Move to Amend created. There's a segment from that original video that we put in this video that where David Cobb, who is a national spokesman for Move to Amend, articulates very well all of the movements that seemed impossible: getting women to vote, getting rid of slavery, getting rid of segregation against people, actually passing prohibition and repealing prohibition, getting 18-year-olds to vote. The 18-year-old vote one wasn't so difficult. That one was easier to see how it was going to get through. But the others were really uphill climbs. Yeah. And when they started, there was almost a complete consensus that it was hopeless. How are you going to amend the Constitution to change our society in such a fundamental way? And as David Cobb points out in the video, it happened, and with dramatic effects on our society. So that gives me, and I think the rest of us, hope that even though we're unlikely to get an amendment passed within a year or 2, or maybe even 3 or 4, ultimately this is an effort that is going to succeed. And the reason it's going to succeed, there are 2 reasons. One is the right thing to do. The other is that there really is a groundswell of opinion currently in the country that will only grow to support the provisions of the amendment. And it's up to us to keep the flame alive. So we are optimistic, ultimately, as difficult as it is in the short term.
All right. Let's talk about how people can get involved in this. You just mentioned the website. Let me repeat it. We'll be getting it up on the screen throughout this program. bdecr.org for Build Democracy and Corporate Rule.org. And you have an Indiegogo fundraiser online that you can get to from there.
Correct.
I imagine you need a slew of volunteers to be out petitioning.
Correct.
Yes.
So how do people hook up with you to do that? A lot of people aren't comfortable going out to petition. What can you tell me about what kind of support you give them and training and that sort of thing?
Well, on the website, there's a time schedule as to what the office hours are, so people can come in to the office during those office hours and, join and get a little bit of training in the office as to what needs to be done. We have been working very closely with.
That's on the Santa Clara County Move to Amend website, not the BDECA website.
Okay. And that one, which we're also prepared to put up on the screen, is scc-mta.org, right?
Correct.
For Santa Clara County Move to Amend with a hyphen in the middle there.
So sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's good that you corrected me on that. So, but it's important that people understand what our office hours are so they can participate. And we've been talking to principally the Democratic Party organization in Santa Clara County because we have a very extensive, I think there's something like 22 or 23 Democratic clubs in the county, as well as several labor unions who are all very much interested in what we're doing and moving forward with what, getting the petition approved for the ballot.
And are these Democratic clubs coming up with volunteers for you, or
we've had quite a number of volunteers? Yes,
but you're always looking for more, no doubt.
Absolutely.
Well, it's one thing to volunteer; it's another thing to become active and actually go out and ask people to sign the petition.
Yeah.
The hard part is asking people to, have the elevator speech to get people interested in signing the petition, because it's not something you just walk up to somebody and start talking to them about.
And they know what you're talking about, yeah.
Right.
So what we're doing is we set up a schedule of training so that we do have a program to train people so that they are equipped to go out and collect signatures.
You send people out in pairs so that they support each other?
Right.
Yes, indeed.
That's pretty important, I think.
Correct, yes.
But in addition to that, just as is really necessary in any kind of social movement, there need to be outlets for volunteering that aren't extrovert. They aren't geared to extroverts. So one thing that we do need is we need help with data, with data entry, with validation. So I'll just give you an example. Somebody comes back with a petition filled with signatures. We need to know that those signatures are valid. We need to have confidence that when we bring them to the registrar of voters, they won't say, "What, Mickey Mouse? Not a registered voter in Santa Clara County."
No, it's
so
Orange County, I think, is where Mickey Mouse is.
So what we need is we need help actually validating signatures as well. And that involves sitting at a desk with a computer screen, comparing a name on a petition and a name from the voter rolls. That's not an extrovert activity, and we need the help. So please, even if you're an introvert and don't have the desire to expose yourself or go out to the public, please feel free to get in touch with us. Our contact information is on both websites. We have a hotline that you can call.
Why don't you give that, because I don't think I got that on the screen, but you don't know.
The problem
it's
is
at the website.
And it's also
bdecr.org.
Yes.
And we'll keep putting that up on the screen for people
Indeed.
at home. I happen to know you're doing trainings in Palo Alto because you're using our office at the Peace and Justice Center. Tell people when they can come in there and learn more about it and see if they want to get involved and go out with petitions or do data entry or any of the other number of jobs.
At the PPJC, our hours are from 9 to 10 on Saturday morning, and then from 3 to 7 from Tuesday through Friday. So please...
To pick up petitions.
To pick up petitions. The training is on from 9 to 10 on Saturday mornings, and then from 7 to 9 on Wednesday evenings. This coming Wednesday, we will not have the training, but next Wednesday and beyond, there will be trainings from 7 to 9 at the PPJC office.
And that address is on the website, bdecr.org.
Correct.
So in addition to the volunteers, this has got to cost some money. How much do you think it's going to take you're going to have to spend just to get it on the ballot?
Realistically speaking, between $100,000 and $150,000.
That's a lot of money.
Yeah.
For a grassroots effort.
Yes, it is. And as I said earlier, there is a real irony in that. That we are raising money to reduce the influence of money.
Right. Well, you got to play by the rules as they exist in order to change the rules to what you want.
Correct.
So let's talk about when you get disqualified for the ballot. What do you hope to see this campaign look like? You are going to be competing against, candidate races, which always get the more attention, and statewide ballot measures. There's often some controversial ones that get a lot of attention, but there's often kind of down ballot ones that nobody really pays attention to until the night before they're supposed to vote, and everybody's reading through their book. What's this one all about? So, what do you hope to do to get the interest of people so Santa Clara County knows that this is on their ballot and knows what it's about?
Well, hopefully the fact that we were doing the public education as we were collecting signatures will help get that. Plus the fact that a lot of the Democratic clubs are very much letting their members know what we're doing, and the unions are very much promoting it to their membership. So, in most respects, the people who vote Democratic are very much in line with the promotion that we're doing within the party and within the clubs and the unions.
Yeah, but one of the reasons you're trying to do this is to educate people that don't already know about the issue, right? So, how do you get to them in the course of a campaign for this?
Let's not fool ourselves. This is the kind of initiative
you can fool me, easily fooled, but go ahead.
This is the kind of initiative that is likely to be under the radar, and to that extent, it's going to be a problem for us. That's a problem. But on the other hand, the default reaction to this among people who don't know about it is usually positive. So if there is no publicity, if there's no opposition, then it's quite likely this is going to pass almost by default. It may not pass by acclamation by some huge amount. In a way, we would like there to be some opposition, to engage with the discussion, to enter the public discourse on the issue. Right now, honestly, the Montana initiative, for example, was not really opposed. It was not considered a threat by the powers that we are trying to deal with.
Because it wasn't actually making law.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So we're dealing in some sense with another paradoxical situation, in the sense that as long as the powers that be don't consider us a threat, we will probably get initiatives passed relatively easily. It's only when we are perceived as a threat that it's going to be a battle, and we look forward to that battle because we think we'll win in the exchange of ideas. But let's not fool ourselves. If somebody wants to spend a lot of money raising objections to this initiative, they'll find ways to do it, and that's going to be our big challenge. We want this to be a threat. We want opposition to present itself so that we can, in fact, raise the issue for the public discourse, and that's really where people are going to be educated.
There's a couple of cases before the Supreme Court right now. The Hobby Lobby one that was just argued last week, that's getting a lot of attention. That goes right to the rights of corporations.
Correct.
Whether they can have religious beliefs, and sensitivities. And there's one that the decision, it was argued last October, and the decision is due any day now, McCutcheon versus the Federal Election Commission, which is directly involved on the money as speech sort of thing. McCutcheon is a wealthy coal baron in Virginia, I think it is. Where? Alabama. And he contributes his personal wealth directly to candidates, and there are under current campaign finance law restrictions on how much individuals can donate total to campaigns and parties and candidates, and he says that's unconstitutional. that his money is his free speech and he should be able to spend it and donate it without limit. So both of these cases are pretty high profile, and they're going to be coming down in this process. And you know, it's been 4 years now since Citizens United. It was 2010?
2010, January 2010.
So, and that's still very well known.
Yeah.
Do you think McCutcheon and Hobby Lobby might have that effect on what you're trying to do? Are they going to become household terms, basically? And whatever else you want to say about McCutcheon or Hobby Lobby and how it relates to what you're trying to do here.
I would separate the two. I think they're different because the Hobby Lobby case really speaks to the corporations as people. And McCutcheon is, in some sense, a logical extension of Buckley versus Vallejo, which has been law since 1976.
Take a moment to explain that to the listeners.
In Buckley versus Vallejo, the court ruled that a person running for office could spend infinitely much money of his or her own wealth to get him or herself elected, affirming that spending that money was just the exercise of free speech. It was an explicit recognition by the court that spending money on elections was the exercise of free speech. McCutcheon takes that further in the sense that he says, it's not me I'm trying to get elected, it's someone else. And I feel limited by the overall limit that the law puts on me. My gut feeling is that Citizens United will not be usurped by McCutcheon. I think that Citizens United already allows unlimited spending. So McCutcheon, in some sense, is like the icing on the cake for Citizens United, but I think Citizens United is still going to be the poster child. As far as the Hobby Lobby case is concerned, there's great potential for that to be to our benefit, but I doubt it. If the court realizes that it really is absurd to have the notion of a corporation have religious beliefs, that begins to chip away at the notion of a corporation being a person.
Right.
And so that could be significant. If, on the other hand, it finds some other way to justify corporations exercising some freedom of religion, and they probably won't put it exactly that way because on the face of it, it is ridiculous. At least I think so. Then I don't know that it will be as widely noted as Citizens United. I believe that Citizens United is going to remain the poster child. Those two will be more icing on the cake.
They're kind of logical. Citizens United seems to me open the door for these two, and the door remains open for more challenges to come before the Supreme Court on both these issues.
There's something very interesting about the Hobby Lobby case in the fact that if the court was, this is some papers or a commentary that I read, which I don't memorize everything, but essentially what the commentary was that if the court rules in favor of Hobby Lobby, they were essentially removing the restriction or the privilege of the executives to make decisions, then they would be more liable to the public for the decisions that they make. In other words, right now, corporate executives can make decisions, but the corporation is responsible for the decision, not the executives.
Right.
Whereas if the ruling under the Hobby Lobby, there is a belief that they would be opening the executives to responsibility for the decisions that they make. And therefore, it would be really much more harmful to the corporation and to the executives than if it was turned down.
After all, Hobby Lobby is a privately owned company. They don't sell stock. This family owns it. But the reason they incorporate is to protect themselves from liability. So that's an excellent point.
I had never thought of that.
And that, I mean, this is basically why the idea that corporations, these legal fictions, these legal entities, why they're wielding constitutional rights as if they were human beings under the various Bill of Rights.
In so many words, under Citizens United, corporate executives have unlimited amounts of money that they can spend, so they actually have more than one vote because they vote their personal vote, plus they vote the money of the corporation to influence the elections. So therefore, they're getting more than one vote.
Give people another example or two of corporations having, you know, rights of human beings. That because I still think people get the campaign finance part of this and money is speech sort of thing. I'm not sure people still get corporate personhood. It's an awkward term, and it's mostly illegal.
There are a number of cases. I'll give you one. The state of Vermont in 1995 passed by a large majority a law requiring any vendor that sold dairy products in the state to label that product as to whether or not it contained bovine growth hormone. It was signed by the governor. It was an extremely popular law. The citizens of Vermont wanted this. Well, the dairy lobby sued, and the federal court ruled that that law was unconstitutional because it violated the corporation's right to free speech. Well, what kind of right to free speech? It's the right not to speak. The First Amendment, and in fact, there's some logic to human beings having the right not to speak. But the First Amendment can be read and is read as granting human beings the right not to say something. It even gives you the right to lie, anyhow, the point is that the court affirmed that the dairy industry had the right not to label its product, and it overturned a law passed by a large majority by the people. There are a couple of other examples. I won't give you the specifics, but the Fifth Amendment has what's called the Takings Clause, which prevents the government from taking property from an individual without compensating them accordingly. There was a case where the Supreme Court ruled that a corporation, if in fact a state law caused its profits to diminish, that the state would have to reimburse the corporation for its lost profits under the Fifth Amendment. Somehow the corporation now has a right to profits. And finally, there was another case of search and seizure, where a corporation won a suit where the federal inspectors came, actually may not have been federal, may have been state, came to inspect a plant unannounced, and the corporation sued, and the court ruled that this violated the corporation's Fourth Amendment rights against search and seizure.
So these are some of the ways that corporations
the whole Bill of Rights of the Constitution are under attack by the corporations.
One last thing.
Or being used. They don't want them to go away. They want to be able to...
It's not just the Bill of Rights. Most importantly, it's the 14th Amendment, which guarantees equal protection and due process under the law. It was passed, I learned in school, it was passed so that the southern states could not discriminate against the freed slaves. That's the dogma that we all learned. It turns out that since the 14th Amendment was passed, approximately 200 cases have been decided by the Supreme Court affirming rights under the 14th Amendment. Of those 200 cases, approximately 90% have been ruled in favor of the rights of corporations. 10% have been ruled in favor of the rights of people. There's something rather bizarre about that.
Maybe the amendment you should be going for is to get rid of the judicial branch.
I wouldn't say that.
That'd be a little more difficult to do. Crystal, if you can bring the microphone up, let's turn to our audience to see if there's any questions or comments. It's all very nebulous, but we invite you to get in on this conversation, and you don't have to have a question. You can just make a comment. If you think they're crazy to try this, tell them. They'll let you know. Once again, the website is BDECR, Build Democracy and Corporate Rule, and that's what we're talking about, is trying to end corporate rule, trying to end the perversions of our Constitution, perversions of our election system. Let's go back to the deeper issues and why this movement has been growing. First of all, how is Move to Amend nationally doing? Is it continuing to grow? They kind of, it initially came on like gangbusters. Jerry mentioned how some volunteers have fallen by the wayside because it does take a long time. But give us an idea nationally how things are moving.
Well, there's been a lot of resolutions passed in quite a large number of cities and counties across the country. So a resolution really states that the population, or that the leaders of the governance of those counties, cities, and states, well, counties, and I think actually the state of California passed a resolution stating that they wanted to overturn Citizens United.
They in fact called on Congress to do a...
City council and the county council and the county in Los Angeles passed a resolution to overturn Citizens United.
To your question, Move to Amend is still growing. The national organization is still growing. It really couldn't grow quite the growth spurt that it did initially, but it is still growing, and they're still accumulating momentum, raising money, becoming more, shall we say, polished. If you go to the website, the national website is movetoamend.org, all one word, movetoamend.org. They produced this rather excellent video, which is on their website as well. They've started what's called the Pledge to Amend, where they are beginning to hold publicly elected officials to a pledge to overturn, to vote for a constitutional amendment, the 28th Amendment. So Move to Amend is still quite active, and I think that you'll find the leadership of the Move to Amend movement really is in this for the long haul. And that's been the approach all along.
The Pledge to Amend, is that something that local groups would be taking to, like, congressional candidates?
Correct.
Is that the idea?
Correct.
Is anybody doing that locally around here?
We are working with our congressional representatives.
Yeah.
We could tell you lots of stories about that, but I don't want to.
Well, go ahead.
We met with Anna Eshoo, a bunch of us. Actually, Paul, you were there as well, where we asked her to host a forum on the issue of corporate personhood and money and speech. And initially, when we talked about a constitutional amendment, I remember her face grew serious, and she stroked her chin thinking, constitutional amendment? I've never supported one. And she seemed rather reluctant. But she did say at the time, I think that's really the only way to really fix this. At the forum, which was perhaps 2 months later, she got up there and she was gung-ho, we have to have a constitutional amendment. So something had happened. I think part of it was that she showed up in an event that she expected to have 50 to 100 people, and there were 300 or 400 people there. In fact, Joe Simidian was there, and I've spoken to him afterwards. He said he was shocked at the number of people who were there. So I think we may actually have some effect on our local elected officials. We're working at some of the others as well.
One of the things that I think all the local Congress people, from Jackie Spear and Anna Eshoo and Mike Condren, Zoe Lofgren, have all signed on to, and that a lot of people are talking about, and it kind of addresses some of your issues, but just really the campaign finance side, is a new bill in Congress for public financing of federal elections. Yeah. Where does that fall short in terms of your analysis?
Very simply, we believe that whatever law passes Congress, even if it is the perfect law, even if it says exactly what we want, it will be contested almost immediately, particularly if it threatens corporations. And the current Supreme Court, if it's consistent with its previous rulings, will promptly strike it down. So to my mind, it will be a Pyrrhic victory. I believe that the only way to achieve the results that we want is to instruct the court via a constitutional amendment. That's the only way that we can be sure that whoever's on the court, they have to abide by the principle that corporations don't have the rights of human beings, and that spending money is not the exercise of free speech. That's where we differ with that approach.
In so many words, that when the Constitution was written, they purposely left corporations out of the Constitution because they wanted to make it a statutory entity rather than a constitutional entity. And so they allowed states to create corporations. They didn't want the national or the federal government creating corporations. So therefore, we have to return to that principle that the corporation is a statutory entity and its statutory laws and statutory privileges are related to corporations, not the other way around, where the corporation has some kind of constitutional right.
Yeah, the history of corporations is really quite interesting, and it was something that the founders of the country feared, was the rise of powerful corporations. So I think we have
the East India Company was a major corporation at the time the nation was founded, and so they didn't want that repeated here in the United States. Right.
And they wanted a tight rein kept on them. I wish we did have the time to go into it. Well, let's just stay for another couple hours. They're not using their studio later. We've got a question here in the audience. So if you could stand up, it makes it easier on
sure.
Yeah.
Debbie Mytelis from Palo Alto. You know, one of the things that many people are concerned about when they think about the issue of restricting corporate rights, et cetera, is that corporations do need to have some requirements and support for keeping their contractual obligations with each other. And so how do you address the issue about this not taking away all rights of corporations, but maybe only limits them or somehow, anyway, address that whole issue of people saying corporations do some good things?
That's an excellent question. There's a broader question, which is there's a body of law now that has existed for since the court affirmed corporate personhood that might be adversely affected and have unintended consequences. Much as Debbie says, it turns out that the way we interpret it, and I'll speak personally, the statutory privileges that corporations get by virtue of having a state corporate charter are exactly that. They're privileges. They're privileges granted by statute, by the state legislature specifically. They are not rights. None of them are rights. The corporation does not have a right to enter into a contract. It has the privilege of entering into a contract. That privilege is granted by state law. It is not granted by virtue of the Bill of Rights or the 14th Amendment. Now, with that said, there are some things that come up that accrue to corporations based on the fact that they have these privileges. So, for example, there are the contracts and commerce clauses of the Constitution that enable entities to do things, in a sense, to trump state interest. So, for example, a state cannot regulate interstate commerce. So if somebody is doing interstate commerce and a single state tries to regulate that, the Supreme Court will strike that down as being against the Commerce Clause of the Constitution. That privilege could theoretically accrue to a corporation. It's an interesting question, but it's not one of rights. And that's really the point here. We believe the corporations do not have constitutional rights, that in fact they do have appropriate privileges granted by statute.
The legal system kind of recognizes them as persons for the reason of contracts, to get sued. If you want to sue a corporation, they kind of represent people in that manner, although corporations don't get sent to jail for polluting the environment, for example.
Right.
But they've taken that basic legal concept and through these constant challenges to the court have expanded it so that they're now being treated as if they were born and bred individuals.
They also have a perpetual life now that they didn't have when they were first organized.
Explain that.
Well, the original concept of a corporation was that it was for a specific purpose and for a specific period of time. And I don't remember the full details, but at some point in the early 1900s, it got expanded to the point that they could be...
The mid-19th century.
During
the Industrial Revolution, there was a revolution in many arenas, in particular in corporate law in the States. And that's when it became expedient for commerce to have corporations assume greater privileges. But I think it's important, again, not to harp, but I'll harp anyway, on the distinction between rights and privileges. Corporation, the word corporation implies a body. So there is a fundamental aspect of corporations that is personhood. And so it's important that we, in our quest, do not we do not turn people off who recognize that. That personhood in the form of executing contracts, being sued, and so on, it was deemed by the states to be very important to foster commerce. And we, as a society, believe in the importance of commerce. Rights, on the other hand, accrue to human beings if you go back to the founders and to the, we'll say, the strict constructionists who claim to be the conservatives, or the conservatives claim to be. The founders believed that only human beings had inalienable rights. And those inalienable rights accrued to human beings, and I had to say this, I'm not particularly religious, because human beings are made in God's image. So a corporation, I don't think anybody would claim that a corporation was made in God's image.
Except for Hobby Lobby.
But the important point is that granting privileges to corporations is expedient for commerce. It is not a moral imperative because the corporation has been created in the image of God.
So the Fourth Amendment against search and seizure means the Food and Drug Administration doesn't have to call in advance to come inspect the safety of a...
Now they do.
Yeah, but they do, because under the Fourth Amendment, yeah, it's food factories, food processing plants,
right.
Pharmaceutical processing plants.
Well, look at the fertilizer plant in West Waco, Texas,
right.
which blew up because there was no inspection of
right.
of the storage of their chemicals.
Right. This is one of these rights that they've claimed, is that the Fourth Amendment guarantees not the right not to be unduly inspected or detained, and corporations have claimed that, including, people think that our food processors are being inspected for health and safety reasons, but they don't know that they have to make the government has to make an appointment. There's no such thing as a surprise inspection, right?
That's right. That's right. To get back to this, I'm going to harp on this again because there's one other thing about the notion of privilege versus right. It may turn out, and in fact it probably will turn out, that when we pass the 28th Amendment, there will be some unintended consequences, that there may be some inhibition to commerce that arises by the removal of protection that the Supreme Court has given to corporations. The good news is that the people have a very easy remedy for that, and that is statute. Statute can provide whatever privilege a corporation needs or corporations need to practice commerce expediently. That's where it belongs. That's where the decisions about expedient commerce, that's where it belongs, not in the Constitution.
And as Jerry said, that's how corporations started, was by statute. Corporations had to get the permission of the state legislature. They could only function in that state. If they wanted to function in another state, they had to get the permission of that legislature.
Right. Yes.
What happened? I mean, we have transnational corporations now.
We also have lots of lawyers. That's what's happening.
We also, to expand a little bit, we not only have to worry about corporate personhood, we have to worry about corporate nationhood, which is a whole other can of worms.
Well, we've got 4 minutes left. What do you mean by corporate nationhood?
The Trans-Pacific Partnership is a treaty that the administration and commercial interests want to fast track. They want to pass it because the idea is it's going to grease the skids of international commerce, and the rising tide is going to lift all boats, which is a metaphor we're very familiar with. It turns out that among the provisions of the Trans-Pacific Partnership is that it will internationalize the rulings of the court relative to corporate rights. So it will grant multinational or transnational corporations the right to invalidate national and local legislation that affects their profits. What it does is it internationalizes the Fifth Amendment clause against takings. And that's something that we really need to be very cognizant of.
That's what we did the program on last month, as a matter of fact. It was TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. It's just a couple of minutes left here. I'll check one more time. Here in the audience, go ahead.
Hi, can anyone tell us what the deadline is for gathering all the signatures?
Excellent question. I meant to ask that. It was right here.
It's approximately 15th of May.
So you've got about a month and a half to go.
Correct.
Right.
So give us one
6
more
weeks.
pitch to sign up some volunteers here. And
We need two things. We need volunteers to collect signatures to help with the infrastructure to support that collection. And we need money to help pay to collect volunteers. So we need to pay people. And what we'd like to do is pay some starving students to collect signatures for us. So money, volunteers, bdecker.org.
yeah. Jerry, you want to add anything to that?
No, that's pretty good summation.
So once again, bdecr.org, Bedecker.
bdecker.
Bedecker. How long did you spend on naming this initiative?
That's a very good question. We actually did a survey. We did 2 surveys, and we listed a bunch of alternatives, and we scaled those alternatives. Build Democracy and Corporate Rule won not once but twice. And so it was a consensus of our community.
All right. We have been talking about a coming ballot initiative, Build Democracy, End Corporate Rule. It's in the process of gaining signatures to get on the ballot. If that's successful, it will be on the ballot next November. Our guests have been Jerry Hunt and Eitan Fenson with the campaign. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you all for watching and tuning in. Other Voices is brought to you live on the first Tuesday of every month, except next month. On May, we're going to be here on Friday, May 9th, with Professor Joel Bainan. We expect some kind of resolution or not of the ongoing effort to get a peace framework between the Israelis and Palestinians. That's what we're going to be talking about in May. He couldn't make it the first Tuesday. I wanted Professor Bainan here to help us understand this, as he has so many times in the past. So mark your calendars. Friday, May 9th is our next program here. And Peninsula Peace and Justice Center will be sponsoring a rapid response demonstration when the McCutcheon decision comes down. That's another campaign finance decision expected any day now from the Supreme Court. Watch our website and your emails, because the day it happens will be at Palo Alto City Hall, 250 Hamilton Avenue, from 5 to 6:30 to protest yet another attack on our democracy. This is Other Voices, brought to you by Peninsula Peace and Justice Center. I'm your host, Paul George. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next month. Thank you again, guys.
Thank you.
Much appreciated.